Because the last batch was such a low moisture, we didn't have to defrost. So we literally just finished bagging the last batch, which was some cookies. Now we can get the next batch on the tray because we don't have to defrost. I'm going to take it off of there, put it on here, and this time we're doing some zucchini slices. Catwood Cooking did some zucchini where they took slices of zucchini and added whatever spices on top that they wanted. So my sister is making some zucchini for herself with that in mind. Sprinkled stuff on it like cheeses, and we're just going to layer them out onto the tray and freeze dry them. So I'm not going to worry about them being a single layer or even a couple layers. I'm hoping to get them all on one tray. If it won't fit, I'll put it on 2 trays. But I want to get these figured out first before we fill up the other trays, just to make sure we have enough. The other items are, I don't even remember what it was, chili or soup or something. They're blocks in the 7x7 pans. They are going to take longer to freeze dry, so I'm not worried about loading these a little higher because the other ones are going to take some amount of time. This is probably, does it matter that they're mixed? Okay. So it could be a way to salvage zucchini, which typically the proper way to do zucchini is you take them and you slice them. Let's see if we can find one properly sliced. You need to slice them real thin and then take like a batter coating like egg wash and breadcrumbs. So dip it in the egg wash and then dip it in some really nicely flavored breadcrumbs and batter of some kind. And then do that twice so you got a nice good layer, and then deep fry it until it's crispy and golden, and then carefully peel that coating off, throw the zucchini away, and you have a delicious coating. And that's how you do zucchini. This is going to be a tall batch. So this is definitely a tall batch, but like I said, and you'll see the next trays, they're going to be blocks of frozen things. They're going to take a long time to freeze dry. So I think these will fit in real well with that set. Okay, so tray 1, so I can get the weight on that tray now. And that's 1643, so it's not a heavy tray. It's just tall. And I'll get a thermometer in there, just kind of tuck it between some of the layers. All right, so that one's ready. We'll get the other ones. And then tray 2, I'm just making sure I get the tare weights on these, and they're the same as normal. So tray 2 is pork roast with some gravy, and they're 1 pound. These are the 7x7 pans, and it's 1 pound, but most, or some of these are in halves, maybe all of them. I do not know how you have it.
1 or 2 of them are not.
Okay, so then we've got halves, which interestingly enough tends to be about half a pound.
Got 1 whole one and all the rest for halves.
Okay. But I definitely want a thermometer on each tray if I can get it. So that tray, 1880, and I'll drill thermometers into there afterwards. And tray 3. Tray 4. Yeah. And this lone one will wait its turn in the freezer. Ruh-roh! Ooh, Scooby snacks! I'm just going to drill into there. Let's see if I can get one that makes a good angle for drilling. So long as I leave the same ones on the tray. It doesn't matter how I rearrange them, of course. You know, the distributive properties, order of operation, something. And it only needs about an inch of that thermometer in there, according to the instructions that came with the thermometers. Thermometers are not required for freeze drying. You do not need to put thermometers in your food or on the food on the trays or anything. I do because I want to know what the temperature is when I go to take it out, especially if it's already stopped, which is so often when I'm doing things. Let's see, which way is gonna, see if that'll give me a good one. So yeah, thermometers are not required. One of the viewers suggested using some stainless steel pieces to freeze into that block. So before I freeze it, when this is still wet, I could insert a piece. I'm gonna try half of this. I could insert it into it and then pull it out. Instead of having to drill, I would just have a hole already made into it with a piece of stainless steel that's the same diameter as the thermometer probe. So anyway, got some of those. Plan on trying those sometime in the near future. Okay, now over to the freeze dryer. What is this stuff? Almost
Pork
like a
and gravy.
stew. So the pork with some onions and carrot kind of gravy. We've got 6 pounds of that, and then almost 2 pounds of the zucchini with some sprinkled spices or cheeses on it. That could be interesting. It could be the first way that zucchini is edible. The last batch, which is cookies, has only been out of there long enough to be weighed and bagged, and then the trays cleaned and now refilled and ready for the next batch. When you have a really low water batch, so there's very, very little ice in there, there's really no reason to stop it and defrost it. So as you saw a little while ago, I just shut it off and restarted it so that it's ready for this batch. Now we're ready to put them in. It's only been an hour or something like that since we opened it to weigh the other ones. And it's only that much time because we were weighing them and counting them and getting some data on them. Otherwise, we could have had them bagged in 15 or 20 minutes. It's really a lot faster if you just do it than if you try to video it and do it and keep data. So when people say, well, is it really that complicated? No, it's not. I'm adding a ton of complexity by tracking all of these things. It really doesn't need to be tracked if you're not interested in it. Okay, so let's get those in there. Going to start at the bottom, tray 4, and work our way up. The thermometers are all showing 20 degrees or less, so they're still nice and cold. And the seal is quite cold right now because it's been on for that whole time. But it looks like we've got a good seal ring around there. Got a good seal ring around there already, so we won't have to worry about air going across there. It has 5 more hours on the freeze time, but we could probably knock off another hour because it's already so cold. So knock it down to a total of 5 hours because it's been 1 hour so far. And then it'll start the main dry cycle, and then as soon as it thinks it's dry enough, it'll skip to the final dry. And we'll be back in about 2 days, so don't go away, it'll be just a minute. Batch 576 with some pork and gravy stuff and some zucchini with some cheese and spices on it. Finished a little while ago, but I wasn't here. If I didn't have the thermometers in there, I wouldn't know if the food was still warm enough to take out without having to worry about condensation on the trays. And as it is, it looks like it's been, I'm going to guess 20 minutes or so, but they're still up at 80 degrees on there. So it's right at the lower end of what I like to take out, because that's in the middle of the food. That means the tray itself on the outside is probably a little colder than that. However, they're going to go right back in for more final dry time. So I'm going to go ahead and take them out, weigh them, and get them back in. So first, so I don't have to bypass any time this time, I just need to open the drain valve. So open the drain valve. Alright, so tray 1. And it is cool, but it's not too cold yet. So 822. Yeah, they weigh almost nothing. Tray, oh, that was tray 1. Tray 2, 1085. It's pork pieces and a gravy on this one. So those are going to go back up. I'm going to put tray 2 up on top and bring tray 1 down a spot. Now tray 3, 1040, and tray 4. I'm going to put tray 4 up one spot, and that tray is definitely cool. The thermometer says about 65, but the tray itself is quite cool. Okay, and then tray 3 will come down one. Now I'll get this back in place and get it shut up. So we'll add more dry time and get it going. So I'll close the drain valve. So I'm gonna add more time by pushing the more dry time, which is going to put it back into the final dry, which means the heaters will be on and it'll be in the final dry cycle again. And continue. Okay, so it's finished 34 minutes ago, and it's plenty cool. And I'll restart. And I'll add another quarter hour so I can get the full 2 hours. I'm giving that 2 more hours of final dry time. Final dry is the last part of the drying, which the heaters are on, and it cycles them on and off to try to keep the trays at about 120 degrees. It's to drive off the last of the bound moisture that's still in the food. So by giving it 2 more hours of that final dry time, I can find out, was it dry? If it doesn't lose any weight, then it was already dry, and I can use the time that's on there now as how long did that batch take. If it loses more weight, we'll put them back in for more time until it doesn't show any more loss of weight. Okay, so we'll be right back in just a second. Don't go away. I'm back. It's been just a little over 2 hours, about 2 1/4 hours. It's time to get these back out and check them to see if they lost any weight. It'll be interesting because they'd had extra time already. I'd give them 3 extra hours overnight to make sure that they would be still warm when I got up today, and then still missed it by a half hour as you saw earlier. But now we can get them out. So I'll use the down arrow and bypass the last few minutes of that. Open the drain valve. Okay, starting with tray 1. Right now that sucker is toasty. Right now that is one hot tray. Thermometer says 120, and that tray is definitely at least 120. So 821, 2 1/4 hours, and that's down by 1. So it was 822, now it's 821. You probably should have kind of stirred them around when I took them out earlier. I didn't even think to do that. It's like stirring around air. The empty tray on this one weighs 754. So there's only about 75 grams total of zucchini on this thing now. And the cheese probably weighs as much. Yeah, So anyway, 1 gram, that actually bothers me a little bit just because it's such a small amount of volume to begin with. I should have stirred them around. So let's check tray 2. Tray 2, no change. Okay, so I'm gonna check them all. Tray 3, 1040, no change. And tray 4, 1073, no change. So the only thing that might have changed is the zucchini one. Let me re-zero the scale so we can kind of double check it. And put this back on there. 822. Okay, it's 822, so it has no change. Well, it's dropping down to 821 occasionally. So anyway, so basically it has no change. It's within the margin of error of this scale. Basically, there's no weight loss on that batch after the 2 1/4 hours, so I'm going to go ahead and stop the machine with the no defrost button. We'll get the thermometer out from underneath the bottom. And the little defrost shield in place.
Yeehaw!
All right. I'll turn this on after we come back and get the time and the power usage. But first, we'll get the tray or the cart of food wheeled over to the bagging area. So the important thing is that there was no weight loss during that check, which means I can back that back up to when it would have before that extra time was added. So basically, you can go back at least 2.5 hours. Now, over to the power usage. The power usage for the pork and gravy stuff plus the zucchini was 27.65 kilowatt hours. Now I'll reset it, get it ready for the next batch. Okay, now we'll go bag things after weighing them. So this is a pork roast pieces with a gravy sauce on it, and then dried zucchini, which has the best potential to be edible zucchini. We'll get the final weights on these and then figure out how they're going to be bagged. I'll get the thermometer out. So 813. Tray 2, 1076. Tray 3, 1031. And tray 4, 1064. We have some zucchini with cheese sprinkled on it, and I'm not going to taste test it because it's still zucchini. Try it, try it. I double dare you.
Where's the ones with the pepper too?
This has pepper. That has pepper.
Try the tiny one.
I'm a pepper. You're a pepper. It's a quick death.
It's not as crunchy as I thought it would be.
It has so much water, I thought it would be kind of like watermelon. I think you'd have to have one that's quite underripe, I think, because watermelon is just fluffy, and this would have no structure because it's just water with a lattice of stuff.
It's fluffy. I don't really taste the zucchini, but I don't mind zucchini.
Well, that's good.
You hate zucchini, though,
Yeah.
so you might taste zucchini.
Okay, so how are you going to bag this stuff? There's about 59 grams. So the zucchini that was just under 2 pounds is now only 59 grams, which is like 2 ounces. So it's a very small, there's just no weight left. It's almost like egg whites. When I do egg whites, they have, yeah. Well, this is slightly heavier than egg whites for the volume, but not much.
It's got skin.
So gonna do it in thirds, fourths? You have 4 of them?
I did 4. I didn't.
Okay. So to split this in 4,
If you take a
we'll
little,
do it about 15 grams
take a little bit
each.
from each side.
Okay. So we'll tear that out. So zero out the scale. So that way when I take it off, it shows negative the weight of the bag. And then I need to get it to just under 15 grams. And the 2 sides, the batches, the bags of them that we put on here were slightly different in their spices. So I'm trying to stir them around gently a little bit so that there'll be more of a mix in them. Well, that's halfway there. So we need just under 15 grams. So there's 14.9. Because one of the things you could do with this would be to take them out of the bag afterwards, put them on a cookie sheet, drizzle them with a little olive oil, and then sprinkle back on anything that comes off of it, and then toast them under the broiler for just a few seconds. That could be pretty nice with them. And then we'll get the rest of the things. Now, we have 3 trays of the pork roast pieces mixed with the vegetable gravy sauce stuff. On this kind of thing where it has nice big pieces that we don't want to destroy, because obviously they're dry, you could take a rolling pin and just make this into powder if you wanted to, and it's going to ruin the structure of it that you want to keep for rehydrating. So one of the things that we've done often is just use a bigger bag. So we can just break this in half by kind of putting a line across there. It weakens it in one spot, and then we can put it in halves, and then it slides right in a bag. So using the 2-quart size bag, and we can just tuck the whole thing in there without having to crush it or anything. And then when you take it back out, you could put it back in a flat pan, just pour the water over it, put a plastic wrap on top of it or something, or you could squeeze out any extra air in here and just pour the water in here. But then you're going to have all that gravy stuff stuck in the bag. That's why most of the time, if we're at home, well, we take it out of the bag to rehydrate it. Okay, now take the other one that's a whole one and do the same thing with it. So just going to put a line across the middle-ish. And just weaken it at that line without having to crush everything up. And there's a huge difference between these various blocks. Some of them have much bigger pieces in them, some of them have less. It just depends on how which part of the pan when you're serving it or portioning them out to begin with. All right. These are just simply taking 1/2 block, the half of the small pan, and that'll be a good serving for one person. So our new quart bags, which are actually a quart, are about 1 inch taller than the old quart bag. The new one, the half block, will fit just sliding right down. The old one didn't quite do it. So I'm going to go ahead and just break off the top, and then it will fit with a little bit off of there. Got everything bagged into 1 quart and a couple of the 2-quart Mylar bags, and all of these are the gusseted bottom ones, which I kind of like. Now we'll add oxygen absorbers. We'll use the 300 cc for the smaller bags, and we've got some 500 cc for the bigger bags. So we'll get those in there, and then we can zipper them shut and then heat seal them. Okay. Now, going to tuck these down the sides to make sure that it's not in the seal area or in the zipper area, and kind of moving them aside just a little bit to make sure that I don't miss one and that I don't double up on one. And doubling up on them would not be a big problem. Missing one is more of a big problem. Going to go ahead, and on the zucchini ones, I'm not pressing out any air. I'm just zippering across the top because they're kind of fragile. it's already going to suck it down by 21% as it absorbs the oxygen. So we don't want to push out the extra right now and crush it. In fact, if we had a nitrogen bottle that we could fill it up with nitrogen, we would blow it up like a balloon a little bit with nitrogen. You know, like the bag of chips when you get them, they're empty. Well, yeah, they're full of nitrogen to help protect those chips. Okay, so we'll get all of these zippered shut and push out as much air as we can on the pork ones. That one feels like I've got something in the zipper, and it does. When you zipper them, you can feel if there's anything in there. That one I had part of the oxygen absorber up in the zipper. Whee! And with these thin ones, because we're pushing out the oxygen or the air, the bag gets kind of thin and it doesn't like to stand up as much. Here's the 500cc ones for the bigger ones. We'll take 2 out, reseal it real quick, and label it for 8. So we'll get 2 of these in there, and again, kind of this I can just kind of toss them into the top because there's plenty of room there. Okay, so now we'll get these, and with this bigger bag, I'm zippering it most of the way across, and because it's the bigger blocks, there's more airspace surrounding it in the bag. I'm going to put a straw in here, and you could use this would be a great use for the chamber vacuums or your seal-a-meal with the hose attachment. But anyway, sometimes I just put a straw in it and suck out the extra air. And then zipper it shut. And you've got this nice suck down block, and then I got to seal that right away though, because the zipper is not. So the zippers are not airtight. They do a really nice job, especially these newer ones. They're even better than this older zipper, but it's not airtight. If you put that in there and wait an hour or two without heat sealing it, sometimes they will start to pull in a little bit more air again. So I've got that sealed now and some of the extra air pulled out. Get this other 2-quart bag and do the same thing. Yeah, so even just a straw does a pretty good job on helping get rid of the extra air. And we'll heat seal this one also. So this is the 2-quart bag. It's already sealed. I just wanted to, because I wanted to get them sealed quickly. But what I did for this bigger bag is I fold it over the seal element and I hold it on this side, and then I lower the heat seal, the bar, I guess the heat sealer. Anyway, lower this over the top of it and just let it push my fingers out of the way. That gives me a good seal. It's down a little bit lower than the ideal top, but it still leaves room for 2 or 3 more tries. It seals great, and it makes it nice and smooth on these longer bags. Now, the last thing I want to do on every bag before I send them back home to be used by other people is put the weight on it. So 240 grams, and if it's bouncing between 2 weights, I use the higher number. So 240 grams. Now I've got the gross weight of this bag. So I've got the batch number, and I've got the batch number on here also, but if this tag gets lost, I still have this number I can refer to from all of my notes. And I've got what it is, the date that it went into the freeze dryer, the amount it was before it was freeze dried, and then the water lost. On this one I could put that it's to rehydrate it, you need to take the weight of what's here and then add about 2.6 times that in water to get it back to what it was when it was wet. But these are my sister's. She usually just goes by feel, pours a little in, a little bit more, till she's happy with it. So I don't always bother calculating it out for her because she doesn't care. Anyway, so now it's got the gross weight at the bottom. If water starts going through the bag or moisture goes through the bag, I'll be able to tell simply by putting it on the scale, and it'll start weighing more. And on this one, if it gained 2%, it's going to weigh 41 or so grams more, or 4.1 grams more than it does now. It'll be extremely obvious. Okay, so we'll get them all sealed, and then they can be sent home. So seal each bag. Whoa! Not a I picked up the spare. Every one of them went down. So as soon as those are all done, back they go. That's it for this particular batch. Getting the freeze dryer defrosted for the next batch. And as soon as we get it defrosted, we'll get it set up for the next thing. With all of those labeled, they can all go into a bag and be sent home. So that batch total was 13 quart bags and 2 of the 2-quart bags. And each one of those bags, well, the zucchini bags, I mean, there's 4 of those, so we could just assume those get thrown away because they're disgusting. Zucchini in general. But the rest of it is equal to, in general, at least a meal, and some of them up to 3 servings worth per bag. So it's quite a few servings total in there. And so those are ready to go away. Now on to the next batch. I said but first. I had to try to save her because it was my duty. Duty.
You're 5.
You wish. 5 might be about right. So you got the beginning of a vocabulary and no filter.